Hi, I'm Geek Theory, and this video is about the purpose of One Piece. There will be spoilers for the Drum Island arc, and I wanna begin with a question. How can art change a person so deeply that it becomes a moral awakening? Drum Island is one of the most emotionally devastating arcs in One Piece. It's the arc that made many people cry for the first time, and for some of us, the hardest. I could make a full analysis of this arc. I could talk about Chopper and how what truly made him human was not a devil fruit, but love. I could talk about the mushroom journey, about attachment, about loss, and about grief. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about what art can do to people and why Eiichiro Oda believes this works. In the middle of the arc, we are shown a flashback. A shadowy figure runs through the street as a building burns behind him. In the chaos, we learn that this man has apparently burned down a house and stolen money. As he casually counts the cash, he tells people to stop making such a fuss. Then we learn his name and his title, Dr. Hiriluk, Quack Doctor. Shortly after, he breaks into a sick man's home. The family is immediately terrified. The man begs Hiriluk not to treat him. His wife tries to escape to get help. Hiriluk shoots her with a tranquilizer gun and forces his new cure-all medicine on the patient. The result is not healing, but suffering. The man convulses, the child cries, and Hiriluk, realizing the damage he has caused, apologizes just as law enforcement arrives. He escapes through the window. At this point, the question is unavoidable. Is this man really a doctor, or just a delusional criminal? The story seems to agree with the doubt. In the very next scene, we see him confronted by Dr. Kureha, who tells him plainly that if he had not called himself a doctor, hundreds of people would not have suffered from simple, treatable illnesses. Even among real doctors, Hiriluk is considered dangerous. So why does he call himself a doctor? To understand that, we have to look at the country he lives in. That country is Drum Kingdom, a nation famous across the world for its doctors and medical expertise. Its medical knowledge is renowned and advanced. So why, when the Straw Hats arrive in desperate need of a doctor, they can't find one? Because in Drum Kingdom, medicine is hoarded, controlled, and weaponized by power. Healthcare exists, expertise exists, resources exist, but access to them is strictly controlled by class. This is not an accident, it's a system. And that system has a name. Wapol, the king of Drum Kingdom. Wapol is often dismissed as a weak or forgettable villain, but that misses the point. Wapol is not designed to be intimidating, he is designed to be revealing. He's a masterclass in how One Piece builds villains around ideas, not strength. Wapol rules purely for himself. He uses his position not for the well-being of his people, but to secure his own power. He orders all doctors to work exclusively for him, and those who refuse are exiled, hunted, or left to die. The result is simple and brutal. By monopolizing medicine, Wapol ensures that people are always afraid, always dependent, and never able to resist. Sickness becomes leverage, survival becomes privilege, and his devil fruit makes this ideology literal. The Munch Munch fruit gives Wapol the power to consume anything. Walls, cannons, houses, ships, even people. He does not build or heal, he only eats. Wapol doesn't just rule through consumption, he is consumption. And this is where we have to return to Dr. Hiriluk. Before he ever called himself a doctor, Hiriluk was a thief, a violent man, someone who lived by taking from others, much like the system he would later try to fight. He calls this his heart disease and refers to his former self as a bad person. But that judgment is not so simple. We already know characters like Nami, a thief not by nature, but by circumstance and her environment. Hiriluk may be no different. He lived in a world where everything is reduced to something that can be consumed, even people. And so he lived in the only way that world taught him how to live. Then he saw something else. Something useless by the logic of Drum Kingdom. A sakura tree, the beauty of it. A thing that produces no economic value, that cannot be owned, weaponized, or extracted from. A thing you can only experience. And in that moment, Hiriluk's heart disease is cured. Not because his body changes, but because his values do. The sakura shows him a way of seeing the world that does not revolve around control or accumulation. A value system built on beauty and meaning without utility. That is what heals him. From that moment on, Hiriluk dedicates his life to curing the same disease in others. Not an illness of the body, but an illness of worldview. So why does he call himself a doctor? Because in Drum Kingdom, doctors are the only people whose work is respected. Healing is the only language the system understands. There is no place here for dreamers, for people who try to change how others see the world. Hiriluk does not become a doctor because he knows how to heal bodies. He becomes one because people are desperate for doctors and because he has no other words for what he's trying to do. In a country where beauty has no value, he tries to spread it in his unique way. What Hiriluk calls a heart disease is not a medical condition, it's a system of consumption, a way of thinking where things are valued only for their utility. And even that distorted idea of value is reserved for the elite. The well-being of people is irrelevant. What matters is the preservation of the system that benefits them. Wapol's top commanders say this openly. You think governance is about caring for your country? Government doesn't need a heart. What's important is the system. Hiriluk doesn't argue with this system. There is no arguing with a sickness. He doesn't try to reform it. He doesn't ask for permission. He takes his diagnosis seriously and dedicates his life to curing it. For 30 years, Hiriluk works on a medicine. Not one meant to heal bodies, but one meant to change how a country sees itself. As long as the country's heart disease remains, medicine will always be a privilege. Hiriluk believes that if the heart is cured, everything else will follow. So he dedicates his life to that cure, and after 30 years, he finishes his work. But before he can ever apply this medicine himself, Hiriluk dies. Or rather, he refuses to call it death. People die when they are forgotten, he says. Even if I disappear, my dream will come true. The people's sickness of the heart will be cured. And he is right. Hiriluk entrusts this cure to Dr. Kureha, and by the end of the arc, we finally see what he spent 30 years creating. His medicine does not cure a single illness. It turns the snow pink. With the drum tower rising behind it, the island transforms. On a land locked in winter, sakura trees appear to bloom. And in this moment, we understand the truth. This was never medicine. Hiriluk was never a doctor. He was an artist who waged war against a diseased worldview. His art does not end monarchy, redistribute wealth, or abolish hierarchy. What it does is simpler. It makes people see beauty where they were taught to see only utility. And once they see that beauty, they can no longer ignore the sickness. But art that challenges a worldview cannot present itself as neutral. Hiriluk understood this. That's why he does not leave behind a medical emblem. He leaves behind a pirate flag. His symbol is a Jolly Roger, a skull and crossbones. And Hiriluk describes this symbol again and again as declaration of conviction. In the world of One Piece, a pirate flag is not just a threat. It is a refusal of legitimacy. To sail under it is to say, I do not recognize your authority. But Hiriluk also understands something else. Refusing legitimacy is not enough. We see this clearly when Blackbeard comes to Drum Island. Blackbeard is the most pirate-like pirate in the story. Pure negation, pure appetite, pure refusal. He drives the face of the system into exile. And yet, nothing is healed. The sickness remains, and the system eventually returns. Because rejection alone does not cure a diseased worldview. If you want to challenge a system, you must also replace what it teaches people to value. That's why Hiriluk's flag is not just a skull and crossbones. It is covered in sakura petals. The skull and crossbones say, I reject your authority. The sakura petals say, I will replace it with something beautiful. Together, they form an aesthetic rebellion. A world where life is meaningful even when it's fragile, temporary, and useless by economic standards. This is why Hiriluk's flag matters. It does not promise a new system. It teaches people how to imagine one. And this is where Hiriluk stops being just a character. Because what he does inside the story is exactly what Eiichiro Oda is doing outside of it. One Piece reflects our world, not in detail, but in diagnosis. The same sickness is everywhere. Value exists in abundance, but it is reserved for the elite. Suffering is not accidental, it is produced by a system that knows only how to consume. A system that reduces people, land, and nature into commodities. In a world like this, Oda does not offer policy. He does not offer reform. He raises a pirate flag. Through his art, Oda raises the Straw Hat Jolly Roger, a declaration of conviction, and One Piece becomes his sakura tree. It's not meant to govern the world, it is meant to change how we see it. One Piece doesn't try to convince you that the world is broken, it assumes you already feel that. It does not preach and it does not argue with sickness. What it does instead is replace meaning, just like Hiriluk. It took Hiriluk 30 years to create his cure. Oda has been writing One Piece for 29. So, art does not heal the world by fixing it. It heals it by making it impossible to see the world the same way again. And that is the purpose of the Sakura tree as well as One Piece. Hiriluk never tells anyone what the Sakura means. He doesn't give speeches. He doesn't explain symbolism. He simply makes it appear and trusts that people will feel the difference. One Piece works the same way. It doesn't hand you answers. It doesn't explain the world to you. It changes what you notice. After enough time with it, injustice feels louder, kindness feels rarer, authority feels less natural, and freedom feels less abstract. Like the Sakura, nothing material has changed. The system is still there, but the way you see it no longer is. And in recent years, we have seen the Straw Hat Jolly Roger appear far beyond the page. In protests, in demonstrations, in moments of collective refusal, raised by people who are not asking for permission, but expressing conviction. The flag has been embraced, and in some places, treated as threat. Because symbols that teach people how to imagine a different world are always dangerous to systems that depend on obedience. And any system that fears a pirate flag already knows it's sick. I know this works because I am one of the people who was changed by art. It didn't give me answers, it changed how I saw the world, and everything else followed. Thank you for watching. This was my first video essay in English, and I wasn't sure whether to make it at all. If this meant something to you, let me know in the comments. If this video does well, I'd like to make more like it. If you'd like to see more, consider sharing and subscribing. And take care.